Hello everyone, thank you for joining our briefing call today. I'll quickly read the disclaimers before getting onto the presentation. No part of this presentation should be considered legal, business, or investment advice. The information in this presentation is selective and not comprehensive. So we will be covering the consultation paper for Education Ecosystem Registry. We'll be looking at what is this proposed project all about and what are the key policies and framework that enable the digitization of education sector. We will also look at the proposed architecture for it and finally the risks that are anticipated in implementing the registry system. So to give a context, first, on March 10th, the National Education Technology Forum under the Department of School Education and Literacy published a consultation paper for creating a registry system for education. The primary purpose of this this project is to sort of unify all the student, teacher, and institute data and bring them all in an interconnected system and to sort of offer greater visibility in data and information to all the key stakeholders in the education ecosystem. This is to track learner outcomes and make better policies as what this is what the paper says. And a couple of reasons why we are talking about this right now is the fact that the government has been keen in on digitizing the health and education sector. In the past couple of years, we've seen how the national health stack is shaping up with there were consultation paper published in the last 2 years for a health registry, healthcare workers registry, a doctor registry, and this particular project sort of lays out the initial plan for developing the national edu stack. Uh, Other thing is that there's not much being discussed about this paper since it's being published, and through this presentation, we sort of want to introduce the paper to our readers and also to understand what do they think about it, what are their observations, and the challenges that can come with, once this project is rolled out. So, what does the education registry system aim to do? Currently, the student, teacher, and institute data are maintained in sort of standalone systems which are not really interlinked. And this project sort of aims to unify this existing disconnected infrastructure through APIs, which enable communication between two different platforms and also enable interoperability and reusability of this data and information to make better policies and track learner outcomes. Some of the key challenges that the consultation paper identifies in the current system is one of them is the inconsistency in basic information of the students. This relates to their name, date of birth, address, email ID, or parent and guardian information as and when they move on from one academic level to another or one institution to another. And the second problem is submitting the obligation to submit physical documents in all of these institutions when we are applying to different institutes. And this sort of limits the opportunities that students have and is also a very expensive affair and a cumbersome process for many students. Then retrieval of lost documents and information is again another challenge because like there's a lot of government what to say back and forth involved here and a lot of procedural delays involved when you have to apply for getting a lost document or information from these departments. Then repeated verification processes and lack of visibility of data. This mainly pertains to the disbursement of scholarship process. And what the EER aims to do is sort of streamline these processes and make it hassle-free for the end user. Before we get on to the proposed architecture, I'd like to discuss what are the key policy enablers for this project. We'll go over it one by one. The National Education Policy is one document that the consultation paper largely refers to when it talks about access, inclusion, and tracking learner outcomes. So, one of the things that the National Education Policy had recommended with respect to technology was the creation of a National Education Technology Forum. This will be an autonomous body which will sort of create a platform for all the key stakeholders to come together and discuss how they can use technology and deploy it in key areas in the education sector. Then it also suggested integrating existing digital education platforms like Diksha and Swayam, which primarily provide e-learning content for schools and higher education institutions. Then one of the important points here to note here is that the NEP also proposed creation of open, interoperable, digital, so-called digital public infrastructures or in the education sector, which is where I think the EER project is also like comes into picture. The main functions of the National Education Technology Forum is to basically advise central and state governments on the use of technology and to identify the key areas where technology can be used in the education sector, and also to engage with researchers in order to analyze the available data and use it for policy making and decision making. The next is the National Education Digital Education Architecture, which is set to be the blueprint for this education registry project. It like outlines the principles and guidelines and policies on how the education registry system should look like and how it will be implemented. It identified students, parents, teachers, administrators, and community members as the key actors in the whole digital ecosystem. Uh, the NDR proposed to create digital building blocks. Registries is one of them, which would be interoperable, which means like information and data from different platforms can be accessed in a reciprocal manner. Then it also proposed to create educational content in regional languages in order to ensure inclusion and also to streamline process services like scholarships and like maintaining academic records and other certifications. Again, the NDR also talked about national portability of educational data for providing services. Next is the India Enterprise Architecture Framework, which was proposed by MITI in 2022. This is a document where the idea for creating federated digital IDs or the federated registries was first proposed. And it also talked about how these standalone IDs would be connected with Aadhaar in order to make this entire, interlink this entire network and enable interoperability or portability of data between different systems. India framework also proposed the idea of creating a single source of truth, which we have seen in other government projects as well. A single source of truth or a master database or a unified database in different sectors. It also proposed for creating mechanisms or facilitating technical capabilities for uh, like digital verification and authentication processes. Um, the paper refers to data empowerment and protection architecture when it talks about data sharing and based on the user consent, that is based on the consent of the student, teacher, and all the entities that are present in the ecosystem. The DEPA framework mainly pitched for like consent-based data sharing and also enables people to access their data securely with third-party institutions. It is considered to be the final layer of India Stack. India Stack is like a bucket of interconnected systems again, which enables government entities and developers or other third-party institutions to use the so-called public digital public infrastructure in order to provide governance and services. In this case, the role of DEPA is like limited to data sharing principles. Like the paper points out that data sharing can be carried out only with user consent based on DEPA framework, and it also has to comply with the principles enshrined under the data protection bill. So, how will the education registry be implemented? The key components of the architecture involves, first of all, the registries, which would be interoperable. These registries would be created for students, teachers, and institutions. Next up is the transaction systems. Transaction systems are basically platforms which will provide services in exchange of data. This will include your National Skill India program or your National Scholarship portal, then also Diksha, Swayam, and even startup companies for that matter, edtech startup. Then education locker or a edu locker system will be created, which will act as an online repository for all the students and teachers to maintain their academic credentials throughout their academic journey. and all kinds of certifications, mark sheets, etc., will be stored in this education locker. Then Vidya Samiksha Kendras are like they were initially they were implemented to sort of track enrollment data, but in this context they will be providing data analytics services to the government entities in order to use this data to analyze where they can you know implement a particular government project or improve or sort of just monitor the progress of various government projects using data. This is what the proposed architecture for the education registry looks like. We have the federated registries of students, teachers, and institutions here, which will be linked to the transaction systems via the via Aadhaar or PAN and GSTN. And some of this data will also be shared with startups like edtech companies and other research and innovation institutes who will, like as and when they provide some services. And this data, the paper says, will be shared based on user consent, that is the consent of the student or the teacher. And all these systems will then emit anonymized data to the Vidya Samiksha Kendras, which will then use it for data analytics. So, what are the key aspects of a student registry? A student registry will be hosted at the regulator board or state level. It has to be federated in nature because there are different boards and it cannot be uniform. And management will remain at the institute level. These student registries will enable the students to share their profiles between different systems whenever they are transferring or migrating from one institution to another, or whenever they're moving ahead in their academic journey. And credentials and data will be stored in a DigiLocker-like infrastructure, that is the EduLocker. Student profiles will be created with common minimal data fields. This is what the paper says. And these data fields include a name, date of birth, address, email ID, parent guardian information, mobile number, etc. And each student registry will generate a digital student ID, which will have a digitally signed QR code. And this QR code will then be used for verification and authentication in different platforms. And the students will have the ownership of their data for managing and updating their profiles, and they can also recover their data through this through the DigiLocker system whenever they lose out on some information. A teacher registry will be hosted in the same manner as that of the student registry, because even teachers will have multiple entry and exit points. And again, the student teacher IDs will also be linked to their Aadhaar, the common unique identifier, which is Aadhaar in this case. And this is how um, the government will keep a track of mobility of the teachers also between different systems and institutions. Digital India Corporation will be offering the DigiLocker facility for teachers as well. And this system will sort of enable teachers to move or allow consented profile sharing between different systems for easy onboarding in different institutions. Then institute registry will be hosted slightly different in a different manner than the student and teacher registry. Institutions will be hosted in a centralized manner, and a central profile for each institute will be created in order to provide a unified view of trustworthy institutes for the students. And but the data and attributes for this central profile of institutes will be managed by the universities and the school and college itself. Institutions will be linked with PAN and not like Aadhaar is not the element here. What's the proposed implementation plan? So until now, in the last year, the like various stakeholders had held working group consultations, and Ministry of Women and Child Development, Skill Development, and the UIDAI, IT Ministry, and other state representatives were present in these working group consultations. Then a task force was created to prepare the draft document for the education registry project, and officers from school and higher education, skill education. EKSTEP was also involved in it. EKSTEP is the organization that provides technical infrastructure for a lot of education platforms. Then it's decided that the National Informatics Center will be appointed as the project manager for the Student and Teacher Registry, and a steering committee will be led by the National Education Technology Forum. Under implementation phase one, first of all, the students and teacher registry will be created. These will generate student and teacher ID, which will be linked to their Aadhaar, and it will also have a digitally signed QR code for verifiability. And then the DIC will create EduLocker and offer DigiLocker capabilities for the teachers. Then all student, teacher, and records will then be linked to their institution ID to track their mobility again. And PAN will be used to link institutions with the registry system. And the Vidya Samiksha Kendras will monitor progress of EER adoption through data analytics. NIC will help the states in implementing the project and cutting the cost of implementation. Under phase two, NCERT and Department of School Education and Literacy will come into picture for tracking national achievement survey as envisioned under the National Education Policy. And at this stage, EdTech companies will also be onboarded into various registries through open APIs. And again, anonymized data will be used for different purposes. Then gradually, the government will start using these registries and the digital cards for providing services like scholarships, admissions, enrollment, and other government schemes, etc. The paper says that most of these capabilities would be designed and implemented by August 2023. Reactions and comments. So we had reached out to more than 15 organizations and individuals for their comments on this project and for their observations. These were like people and organizations who are closely sort of tracking the digitization in education sector, but we did not really get any comments or observations so far. We're still waiting. And the consultation paper, the feedback for consultation paper has been extended for until May 5. Previously, it was April 17th. So we are hoping people would write their feedback to the Education Ministry. What next? We've already discussed the development of EduStack is something that we can expect out of this, like not soon, but it does sort of set the foundation for it. And with more interference of private companies like Ekstep and EdTech startups in whatever capabilities that the government is planning to, there's also the question of accountability. I'd like to give an example here. So last month, when the whole issue of Diksha servers, the security lapse in Diksha servers came up, and we had written about it. I had filed an RTI with the NCRT to sort of check what's happening and what's the like what they have done to like tackle the situation. And the NCRT replied saying that they are in touch with Ekstep, which manages the technical operations of Diksha to take the necessary security measures. But like soon after, after a few days, I read an ET report where the Economic Times had actually spoken to somebody from Ekstep who said that they are not managing the operations of Diksha. So I filed another RTI with the NCRT saying, like asking them about this contradictory stand, and then they replied saying that the NIC is actually the National Informatics Center is actually taking care of the technical operations of Diksha. So there is this space for uncertainty and confusion about who exactly is responsible for what's happening with Diksha's data security problems. So this is just one aspect, but we can see this problem happening in other areas too when it comes to digitizing the entire public education sector. Some of the immediate challenges that we can talk about here is concerns related to exclusion. One of the immediate challenge is, of course, the lack of documentation, which will be required to actually create these student IDs. We are already seeing how schools in different states are struggling with Aadhaar. For example, recently there were so many reports about schools in Mumbai struggling to update their portals because students did not have their Aadhaar card, or there were so many errors in their Aadhaar card. And now they are asked to update the teacher Aadhaar card data also, and all the teachers are sort of doing it manually. And some of the students have ended up losing their semesters because of this. Because of course, there is like the admission is a bigger problem when it comes to when if your data is not updated. So these are some of the concerns related to exclusion and consent and privacy. I was Like, I just remember a conversation with one of my colleagues, Akshit, about this project. He rightly pointed out that if students' academic record is being tracked at every stage until they complete their educational journey, this activity can actually influence the kind of opportunities they'll be able to avail later. Because if a student is taking a gap year, or if there's something negative recorded in that digilocker facility or wherever they're recording all these uh, like academic certifications, it is likely we can expect that something like this would happen, and people's career prospects would be greatly affected if it is tracked so much or surveilled so much. Then I had some questions when I was working on this story. One of them is definitely the point that, like, will digitization or maintaining electronic records ensure inclusion, which seems to be the ultimate goal of this project. If the government is relying on the data produced by these registries to design policies, does that really I mean, I it's difficult to comprehend how much it will affect policy making and also the budget approvals for various government projects. For example, if a student has been registered in the ID, okay, and as somebody who is enrolled in a school, but we don't really know if that student is actually accessing education, like formal education in the classroom. One example we can take here is the Right to Education Act. Like, it's the most basic act when it comes to inclusion in public education system. So right now, the situation with RTE is that under the lottery system, a lot of students are enrolled, but they are uh, on ground they're actually excluded from classrooms because the state governments are not uh, able to sort of reimburse the schools for these students who are enrolled under RT. This is just one case, but um, if the government is saying that they want technological interventions or technological solutions for inclusion in the education sector, then I think this education registry should in a way account for these problems as well, which I don't think the paper mentions at all. And so, yeah, the question of what purpose will the education registry ultimately serve, or who will it ultimately benefit, is something that we can discuss in this session also, apart from all the tech policy concerns. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Saraswati. This was a really comprehensive overview of, I think, everything the paper has said that maybe we didn't get the time to read. So thank you a lot for that. Sarvesh, if you could stop the recording now, please.